Welcome to Chapter 2 of the AquaCase AC10. Chapter 2, we're going to talk about the installation of this unit. We're going to first start talking about the suction or inlet ports as well as the discharge or outlet ports on the top. So in this case here, we're using this in a lift condition. And again, we can lift a maximum of 25-foot total suction lift. So in this case here, we're using the inlet port on the left. We could have also used the inlet port on the right-hand side. So basically, towards the bottom of the unit, those are inlet ports. So in this case here, we're choosing to use the inlet port or suction port on the bottom left-hand side. We do have to have a foot valve so we don't lose our prime. The other side here, we have to cap that off. The two options that we have as far as discharge goes, again, we could use the left-hand side or we could use the right-hand side. In this case, we chose to use the discharge port on the right-hand side. And again, you have to cap the other port. So we have a lot of different combinations, a lot of different options on suction and discharge with this unit. So let's take a closer look at some of these fittings. So we'll first take a look at the cap. And again, whatever port you are not using, you just have to simply cap that off. And one thing to note is all of these fittings have an O-ring. So you do want to make sure you're using a water-compliant lubricant for those O-rings, and that applies to all four ports. So that's simply your cap. And these are all a thermoplastic, so you want to make sure that you do not over-tighten any of these fittings. So let's take a look at the 1-inch NPT fittings that we're using here that come with the product. You do need a potable water-compliant lubricant for the O-ring. And also another thing to note here is it's generally good practice to use both tape and a thread sealant on these fittings. And again, you do not want to over-tighten these thermoplastic fittings. Okay, so now let's move on to the access ports. So the first access port that we're going to get into is for your check valve. What you need here is a Torx T20 bit. And so we've got two screws. So we're just going to remove this access cover. That's going to allow you access to the check valve. See, we've already have one here. You're going to unthread this piece here, and now you have access to that check valve. So in this case here, with a lift condition, we need to fill this pump full of water to prime it. So this is how you would access that port. So in a lift condition, again, we've got our foot valve, and we've got to fill the pump full of water. So then we're going to put this back and snug this up. Again, it's got an O-ring. You do not have to over-tighten this check valve. Next, we're going to move on to the port for checking your air pressure. So again, with the air pressure, you need a Torx T20 bit to undo this access port. So now that we've removed the cap, we have access to the Schrader valve. And so now we can just confirm and check that pressure in the tank. So the same general rule of thumb applies with your tank air pressure should always be, as a starting point, 20 psi less than your set pressure. So let's say that we want to run 50 psi constant pressure. We're going to have 30 psi of air in the tank, at least as a starting point. So that's how you access and change the pressure in the tank. The last access port that we're going to talk about is access to the priming valve. So again, very similar. We have a Torx T20. Take off those two screws to get to this valve. What we're going to do is we're going to show you up close what that priming valve looks like. So once we've removed those two Torx T20 screws, now we have access to the priming valve here. So once you unthread that, you now have access to that priming valve. So we're going to pull this out, and in the default condition or normal condition, we can see that that spring is facing the outside. So with a lift condition, all you have to do is flip that, just turn it around so the spring goes in first. So again, a lift condition like we have here, we're going to flip that and then just simply tighten everything back up again. Okay, so to summarize what you have to do in a lift condition like we have here, you need to access that priming valve like we just talked about and flip that spring so the spring goes in first, and then button that up. We need to remove this port here, which is your check valve, and we need to fill the pump full of water and tighten that up. Also remember, you have to have a foot valve on the suction side. The last step there is to get into the menu because we have a priming mode. And so you just enable that priming mode. So you would follow that procedure in any lift condition. Now, if you have flooded suction, you don't need to do any of that. You don't need to fill the pump full of water. You don't need to flip that spring. Out of the box, it's basically ready for flooded suction applications. Thanks for watching Chapter 2, where we covered the installation portion of the AquaCase. Be sure to stick around for Chapter 3. We're going to go through the menu.